hear me? The mic is my enemy. Yeah, okay, well, it is good to be here. It is a blessing. 75 years, wow. That's a period of time. I've been here for 1 year, so. But it is a blessing. The elders and the leadership here at Sanford have been so excited for this weekend. The 75th is homecoming, planning speakers, planning topics and the classes for the kids, planning out to have good food after each lesson, and on Sunday have a big potluck. And they're just very excited, and it's encouraging to see some guests here, some old members, or some people, whatever the situation is. It is really encouraging. And you don't need me to tell you that here at Sanford, we always talk about family. We say the saying that we're a forever family, and this idea, this concept of family is interwoven into kind of everything we do here. This concept of family, and you don't need me to tell you how important family is, how important it is to take care of your loved ones, to look after your kin, those in your family. It's important to have relationships just in your family. It's so important in our day and age. But you also probably don't need me to tell you that just the nature of having relationships, the nature of being close to people comes bickering and disputes. And I mean, we all have that uncle who comes to every family meal, every family dinner, and he just always seems to get political. We all have that grandma or grandpa who's getting a little older and they're starting saying some weird, maybe start to say some rude stuff to people in the family. We've all got that mother-in-law who we don't really get along with. We've all got that brother or sister-in-law maybe we don't really see eye to eye with. Maybe we don't even really like. But we've all got those kind of relationships. We've all got those kind of, and we see a lot of times it's just harmless. It's just he said something, it kind of got on my nerves. I can take it, I can handle it, we'll forget about it later. But sometimes, and I've seen this, and I bet you've seen it too, sometimes it's more than that. Sometimes someone says something, or someone does something in the family, or someone says something behind someone's back, or someone lets something slip that has been said behind someone's back in front of their face. And that relationship in the family gets fractured because of that disagreement. It breaks that relationship in some way. And like I said, we all know this situation. We all have that person in our family who, the Uncle so-and-so doesn't come to Christmas anymore, right? Aunt so-and-so, she doesn't come to Thanksgiving anymore, right? Because of this drama between these two people. Because of so-and-so said this, because so-and-so didn't say anything, but they always treated them differently. And just the nature of human relationships, the nature of being in a relationship with your family brings about this disunity between us sometimes. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at what the Bible has to say about this. And we're going to look at one story tonight, and I've been given 40 minutes, so it's kind of a longer story. So you have to bear with me, I hope I don't lose anyone. But we're going to look at what the Bible says about family and how there is disunity even in biblical families and what we can learn about that. And to start that, what we're going to want to do, we're going to want to read this verse in Genesis chapter 12. This verse is it's God's calling. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country and your kindred, and from your father's house to the land that I will show you. And I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you, make your name great so that you will be a blessing." So right off the bat, God is basically promising Abraham this great family. And we know he says that as numerous as the stars are in the sky, as much as the dust or the sand on the beach, so too will be your family. So God is promising Abraham this great, great family from the start. And like I said, we know the Old Testament so well. We know all these stories. The story of Moses, story of David, stories of Samuel and so on. We know all these stories so well, but somewhere along the way, we just forget to remember the fact that the nation of Israel is just Abraham's family. Like that's what the entire nation, God's chosen people, is Abraham's descendants. It's Abraham's family. And we forget that sometimes, so it's important to be able to remember that tonight. And what we're going to do is, so if you have your Bibles, turn to Genesis chapter 37. That's where we're going to start. Like I said, this is a long story, but we're going to try and fill the time here. So, Genesis chapter 37, we're going to take a look at this family when it was still young. We're going to take a look at this Abraham's family, Abraham's descendants, starting the story of Joseph and his father Jacob. Genesis chapter 37, verse 5. Now Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, hear this dream that I have dreamed. Behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and behold, my sheaf arose and stood upright, and behold, your sheaves gathered around and bowed down to my sheaf. Okay, so Joseph right off the bat is telling us. Now, I'm not much of a dream interpreter, and I assume probably most people here aren't. But this one's pretty easy, right? Joseph says he had a dream where basically you guys were all bowing down to me. I wonder what the interpretation of it. And the brothers figure out pretty quickly as well. And you can look at verse 8. His brothers say to him, are you indeed to reign over us? Or are you indeed to rule over us? And so they hated him even more for his words. And so what you have to understand is at this point, it says they hated him even more. That's because they already didn't really like their brother. And that's because what you have to understand is that Joseph is the favorite son in this family. And most of you guys probably understand this. Joseph was the favorite son. He was the golden boy. Jacob liked him more than all the other sons. And I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying that's the way you're supposed to do it. But Jacob liked Joseph more. And we know why. Because Joseph was the son of Jacob's favorite wife. Now, does anyone here, guys, have a favorite wife? You laugh. The answer is yes. It's supposed to be the one wife. Jacob, the story's kind of funny. He meets this girl and he loves and he wants to marry her. And he asks her father, I'd like to marry your daughter. And he says, yeah, you can marry my daughter. But you got to work for me for 7 years, man. So Jacob, he loves her, works for 7 years. And at the end of 7 years, he says, oh, I wasn't talking about that daughter. I was talking about my ugly older daughter. And you want to marry that daughter, you got to work 7 more years, Jacob. And so Jacob does, because he loves her. And you can imagine 14 years, waiting 14 years to marry the woman you love and to be with her. It was probably pretty special for him, though, when he had his kid with her. And again, not saying it's okay to have a favorite kid, but that's just Jacob's situation. And the brothers were jealous of this situation. Their brothers were so jealous of Joseph. So much so, and this was kind of the last straw. He tells them, look, you guys should be bowing down to me. And this was kind of the last straw. They plot to get rid of him. And you know where this goes. They sell him into Egyptian slavery. Okay? Now, it's important right now. We're going to pause. We're probably going to do this throughout the night. We're going to pause, and we're going to take a look at this family that we say we're talking about. Abraham's descendants. We're pausing and looking at the status of this family. How are they doing right now? Right? The brothers, the sons are all really jealous and selfish and evil. They just sold someone into slavery. That's a pretty evil thing to do. Right? The father doesn't seem to know how to parent. He has a favorite son and openly likes one of his sons more than his other sons. And let's be honest, Joseph's hands aren't clean in this. Joseph seems pretty arrogant. Right? Do you have any idea the audacity you have to tell someone that you should be bowing down to them, like with a straight face? Do you have any idea? So, and the more we read the story, the more we realize that's not exactly the case with Joseph. But as far as we've read right now, Joseph seems pretty arrogant, right? And so the story goes on, and you know how the story goes. The Bible tells us that Joseph remained faithful to God despite his circumstances. So much so faithful to God, that God caused everything he did to succeed. So Joseph was sold into slavery for this man named Potiphar, who was the captain of the Pharaoh's guard. Joseph was sold into slavery for him, and because he was such a diligent worker, because he was such a smart guy, and because he was such a trustworthy guy, Potiphar began, the Bible tells us Potiphar trusted him and had no withdrawal. What's the word I'm looking for? He had no reservations on letting Joseph do anything because he trusted Joseph. And Joseph rose, he was still a slave, but he essentially became Potiphar's right-hand man. He became head of his household, essentially, over all of his affairs, because Potiphar trusted him. And because God allowed him to succeed because he was so faithful to him. Okay? And we know, again, it's a lot of ups and downs, a lot of tough situations happened to Joseph. So much so, Joseph, one day, Potiphar's wife comes on to him, right? And again, Joseph, righteous guy, nope, not doing that. Can't do that. And Potiphar's wife accuses him of raping her. And we know, and Potiphar trusts Joseph. Potiphar kind of loves Joseph. He's a good worker. He's a good servant. But Potiphar's hands are tied here, right? I mean, it's the word of the wife, or it's the word of a slave, even the best slave. Potiphar's hands are tied, and he has to throw Joseph into prison for something he didn't do. But again, the Bible keeps telling us Joseph was so faithful. God caused everything he did to succeed, so much so that he rose to ranks, basically the same position he was for Potiphar, he rose to in the prison. The warden took to him, saw that he was a faithful man, saw that he was trustworthy, saw that he was a smart and diligent worker, and basically made him second in command over all the prison. And through it again, a crazy chain of events, he meets the Pharaoh's servants, the Pharaoh's former cook, who he predicts his dream and says, remember me when you get out of prison and tell the Pharaoh that I can help him and that I have these special skills. And the cook forgets about him, and then he's there for even more years in prison. And then one day, he wins an audience with the Pharaoh himself. And he interprets Pharaoh's dream for him. And it's so bold, it's so amazing when you read it. He is so bold that he gives the Pharaoh advice. He tells the Pharaoh what he should do, which back in the day, not a good idea to tell a king of any nation what they should do. You don't speak unless spoken to. But he had the audacity to tell the king, hey, there's going to be a famine in the land. You know what you need to do? You need to put me in charge of everything. You basically need to put me in charge of the wealth and the resources of your country for 7 years, and we're going to make a bunch of money. Why don't you do that, Pharaoh? And it's amazing that this works. He pulls this off. Pharaoh says, yeah. Have you seen, it's a new commercial. I think it's like a Brandtman commercial of the guy. He's walking with the lady at the business, and they're face to face right here, and he's talking in front of her face, and the thing, his breath is so fresh, he can get away with that. And then, like, the one business owner, he's face to face with him, and it looks like he's being rude, and the guy just goes, I like your confidence. Like, I imagine that's how this went over with Pharaoh. Like, everyone's looking around like, is this guy serious? And Pharaoh's just nodding his head like, I like this guy's energy. Yeah, we're going to make you second in command, the second most powerful man in the entire world. Joseph went from being sold into slavery to the second most powerful man in the world, and he was faithful to God through all of it. Man, there's a lesson in that tonight, right? Joseph, Joseph, like we said, he was the second most powerful man in the world, and we're going to pause again. Well, no, we don't pause yet. Okay, we don't pause yet. The next portion is we're up all the way in Genesis chapter 42. Okay, so we're fast forward a little bit. We skipped around a little bit, and you can go to the next line. And there's a famine in the land of Canaan, all of Canaan, just like Joseph predicted. It came to pass. And there's a famine in all the land. And I think I have a map now. Isn't that up there? Yeah, you guys know this. That's the map of the promised land. Basically, I know you guys can't see it. I always do this. It's not a good enough picture, I'm sorry. That's the map of the promised land. That's all of that area would have been without food. Everywhere except Egypt, because they stocked up their resources. So people are coming far and wide to get to Egypt in order to get food. And Joseph is in charge of all of it. Now, Genesis chapter 42. We're back with Jacob and his 10 brothers. And Joseph's 10 brothers. When Jacob learned that there was grain for sale in Egypt, he said to his sons, why do you look at one another? And they said, behold, I have heard that there is grain for sale in Egypt. Go down and buy grain there, that we may live and not die. So 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain in Egypt. But Jacob did not send Benjamin, Joseph's brother, with his brothers, for he feared that harm might come to him. Thus the sons of Israel came to buy among the others who came, for the famine was in all the land of Canaan. Okay, now we're pausing again here. How is the status of Abraham's descendants doing? How are they doing right now? They're starving. They're going to die if they don't get food from Egypt, right? There's no evidence that the brothers have grown up at all, that they're not selfish, they're not jealous. Joseph they think he's been dead for decades, right? He's doing fine, but they think he's been dead as far as the family's concerned. And Jacob's got a new favorite, right? He's got a new son, Benjamin, who's his new favorite in all of this. And so things have not gotten any better for Abraham's descendants. The family of Israel is still not doing well. They're on the brink of starving. So much so that they have to send the brothers on this long journey, the map's gone, but this long journey to get food so they won't die. This is where the story picks up. Chapter 42, starting in verse 6. Joseph was the governor over all the land, and he was the one who sold them. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed themselves before him with their faces on the ground. Joseph saw his brothers and recognized them, but he treated them like strangers, and he spoke roughly to them. Where do you come from? He said. And they said, from the land of Canaan to buy food. And Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. And Joseph remembered the dreams that he had dreamed of them, And he said to them, you are spies. You have come to see the nakedness of the land. And they said to him, no, my Lord, your servants have come to buy food. We are all sons of one man. We are honest men. We have never been spies. Okay, so Joseph, and this is kind of a problem for some people. Joseph recognizes his brothers, and his brothers don't recognize him. So this is a problem for some people. Like, well, this story's got to be made up. How do you not recognize your own brother, right? Well, I actually kind of have a theory about this. Have you ever seen a movie or a TV show or a play or something, whatever, where it depicts ancient Egypt? Yeah, okay, you have? I mean, there's all kinds of movies about it. You notice that the Egyptians are always very unique. Like, there's unique things about all of them. They have completely shaved heads, they have shaved eyebrows, they have drawn-on eyebrows, drawn-on facial hair, really weird robes and garbs and head dressings. Right, you guys get this? And this was, don't forget, this was decades, maybe 2 decades after they had last seen him, and they thought he was dead. The odds are they just did it, like he looked like a completely different person right now, and they just didn't recognize him at all. Like, I don't think it's that far-fetched that after maybe 20 years, if you guys hadn't seen me in 20 years, thought I was dead, and I came back with a shaved head, looking really weird, probably talking with a different accent, like, I don't think that pricks the whole balloon of the Bible. I don't know. So I've met someone who says, no, that story, the Bible's all made up. How do you not recognize your brother? I said, I'm good. Okay. So, the bottom line, Joseph recognizes his brothers. They don't recognize him. And he's kind of giving them a hard time. And he's being rough with them, accusing them of being spies. And that because the land is barren and there's no food, now would be a good time for you to invade with your whatever country you're from and attack us. No, we're just here to buy food. Obviously, he knows they're just here to buy food. They're his brothers. He knows that. Okay? So, let's read on here in chapter 42, verse 12. Joseph said to them, no, it's the nakedness of the land that you have come to see. And they said, look, we are your servants. We are 12 brothers, the sons of one man of the land of Canaan. And behold, the youngest is this day with our father, and another one is no more. Joseph said to them, it's just like I said to you, you are spies. By this you shall be tested. By the life of Pharaoh, you shall not go from this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you and let him bring your brother, while you remain confined, that your words may be tested, whether there's truth in you. Or else, by the life of Pharaoh, surely you are spies. And he put them all together in custody for 3 days. So he's like, look, I'm not buying it. I think you guys are spies. And he throws me in prison. And he says, you're not getting out. You can pick one of you and go home, and you can go and bring your brother and corroborate your story. Other than that, I'm assuming you're lying. I'm assuming you're here to plan an invasion on our people. All right? So you're going to prison. Okay? And now it's important to point out this one. Knowing how Joseph has handled every situation that's been thrown at him, every evil circumstance, all the things that have happened to him, sold into slavery, thrown into prison unjustly, all the bad things that have happened to him, and knowing that it says he has remained faithful to God through all of that, and how God has been by his side the entire time. Does it make sense that Joseph is just giving his brothers a hard time because he wants to enact some evil plan of revenge on them? Because he wants to get even with them after 2 decades of bad stuff that's happened to him? Does that make any sense? No, that's not really consistent with the story, right, or with Joseph's character. No, because Joseph isn't doing this to get even with his brothers. And, well, I'll read it for you. In verse 21, later on, you can see chapter 42, verse 21. He overhears them while they're in the prison cell. And this is what they're saying. They said to one another in verse 21, in truth, we are guilty concerning our brother. We saw the distress of his soul, and he begged us, and we did not listen. That is why this distress comes upon us. And Reuben, their oldest brother, answered, did I not tell you not to sin against that boy? But you did not listen, so now there comes a reckoning for our souls. And it tells us later in the chapter that Joseph overheard this, and he got emotional. And he broke down and started crying. Because he still loves his brothers. And it made him feel good that they were sorry for what they did to him. And Joseph isn't enacting an evil plan of revenge. Joseph is not trying to get even. Joseph is testing his brothers. All right? Joseph is doing this to test his brothers. Okay? And he comes back in and he tells them, look, I've been too hard on you. You guys can all go home. But if you come back here without your brother, I'm going to know I was right. Okay? And then you're really going away for good. Okay? So Joseph sends them home. They all go home. And the first thing they do is they tell Jacob, look, we didn't get enough food because, and they fill him in on the details. Look, we need to take Benjamin back with us to Egypt, or we're all going to die. And verse 38 is Jacob's response. Jacob says, but he said, my son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is the only one left. If harm should happen to him on the journey that you are about to make, you bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to Sheol. Okay? So, man, and this is, I don't really understand this. Maybe there's some dads out here that can understand this. They're going to die. Right? They're all going to die if they don't get food from Egypt. The only way to get food from Egypt is to send Benjamin to Egypt. And Jacob seems to be content with this fate. Like, no, I'm not putting my son into harm's way. I would rather die than lose my son again. And like I said, I don't really understand this because he's going to lose his son anyway, right? Just logically, like he needs food and he doesn't have food, Jacob. But maybe father's going to relate to a Father's Day reason. Not wanting to put your son in harm's way. But anyway, he basically says, look, my son's not going anywhere. I'm not losing another son. And then Judah comes up in chapter 43 and verse 8. And Judah says this to his father. Judah said to Israel, send the boy with me, and we will arise and go, that we may live and not die, both we and you, and also our little ones, our children. I will be a pledge of his safety. Now, that's important. A pledge of his safety. From my hand you shall require him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, then let me bear the blame forever. Now, pledge of his safety. You can do what you want with this information. I'm not 100% clear on it. I'm just going to repeat to you what was told to me. My professor in college, he read this very verse to us and said this. Back then, a pledge of safety was more than, hey, trust me, he'll be fine. Just trust me. All right? Just trust me. It was more than that. That's what a pledge is to you. Like it's a trust me. That's all it is. Back then, it was more than that. Back then, a pledge was like a pact. For him to pledge something to Jacob means that if he breaks that pledge, he would have had to replace that thing with equal value. Now that kind of makes sense in today's age. Hey, let me borrow your car. If anything happens to it, I'll take care of it. You understand that? If anything happens to your car, what am I going to do? I'm going to buy you a new car, aren't I? That makes sense. For Joseph to pledge safety for Benjamin, for Jacob's youngest son, would have meant if something happened to Benjamin, Judah was giving his youngest son to Jacob to replace. Now, that doesn't make any sense in our day and age. But you got to consider, back then, heirs were a big thing, right? And if someone didn't have an heir, their legacy died out. The most important thing a man could have in a household was an heir. More important than money, more important than food, more important than anything, was to have an heir to carry on his name. Now, Benjamin was his youngest, so I'm not really clear on this, but he was the oldest remaining of one of his wives, of his favorite wife. So I assume that meant he had some kind of heir status, and if anything happens to Benjamin, he loses that heir. So he would have needed Judah would have had to replace him, basically give him a son. Now, like I said, that's weird in today's age, and I'm not 100% clear on how it works. But that's how the situation is explained to me. Judah is pledging his own son to replace Benjamin. Now, this gets even more interesting when you think about this. Judah's a terrible guy throughout this story. It was Judah's idea to sell Joseph into slavery. And I'm not going to get into it, but if you don't believe me, go read chapter 38 of Genesis. Judah's not a good guy. All right, it's really weird, it's really racy, and he does a lot of bad stuff, and gets caught up with a lot of bad stuff, and like I said, not going to get into it, but Judah's not a good guy. And so my theory is that Judah doesn't care if he loses his youngest son. He just wants to say or to do whatever it takes to go get him enough food so he doesn't die. That's my theory of what's going on here with Judah. But whatever's going on, Jacob relents. Jacob basically says, fine, I accept your pledge, take the boy, go down to Egypt, buy enough food for us to live. Okay. Judah makes it happen. Okay, so Jacob agrees to send the boys down to Egypt. They go to buy food, and when Joseph sees them coming back with their brother, he's like, oh yeah, he celebrates with them. He apologizes for throwing them in prison, I assume. And then he throws a big feast. He throws a big party for them, for the boys, where he's giving them food. He's giving them all the food they want. He's not making them pay for the grain that they need for their family. He's giving them gifts. He's giving them gold. He's giving them all kinds of stuff. And it's very, very funny because this is where the story really, really picks up. Verse 33 of chapter 43. And they sat before him, the brothers sat before Joseph, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men looked at one another in amazement. And portions were taken to them from Joseph's table. But Benjamin's portion was 5 times as much as any of theirs. Okay, so first Joseph puts them in order by age, which is, there's 11 of them. That's more than a coincidence, right? Because he knows their age. Whatever. They kind of look at each other like, oh, that's weird. And they just never say anything about that ever again. And then, like it says, he's giving them food, he's giving them gifts, he's giving them money. He's giving Benjamin 5 times as much stuff as he's giving anybody else. Okay? Now, why is he doing that? Again, remember, Joseph's testing them this whole time. Why is he doing that? Because, remember, Benjamin's the new favorite, which means all of his life, Benjamin would have been given more stuff than the other brothers. Which means all their lives, just like Joseph, they were probably sick and tired of Benjamin being treated differently by their father. And now here they are, for no reason, this guy likes Benjamin more too. That would have been the last straw. And what would you expect these brothers to do? You expect them to get mad, right? But they drank and are married. They drank and were married with him. They celebrated with their brother. They were genuinely happy that something good had happened to their brother. Even if that meant that something good didn't happen to them. Nothing bad happened to them. But he got more than they got, and they were genuinely happy for him. And this is a great moment in the story. It comes full circle. They have set aside their differences. They have grown up. The family has become unified and has set aside the evil and the jealousy and the selfishness that has plagued their family in the past. And they have grown, and it's done. They have proven that they are a good family, like a unified family in this moment. And it seems like a happy ending. You're reading this and you're happy for the brothers. Like, yeah, that's great. But Joseph isn't quite convinced yet. And this is what he does. Okay. He gives them all packs of gold. He sends them all on their way after the feast. And he says, in chapter 44, verses 1 and 2, he commands the steward of his house, fill the men's sacks with food, as much as they can carry, and put each man's money in the mouth of his sack, and put my cup, the silver cup, in the mouth of a sack of the youngest, with his money for the grain. And they did as Joseph told him. So Joseph is framing Benjamin here. He packs up all their stuff, and he takes his probably priceless chalice that he would have drank out of. It was probably made of pure silver, probably priceless. Only rich people get these chalices. And he hides it in Benjamin's sack, making it look like Benjamin stole it, right? Sends them on their way, and as they're leaving, as they're walking home, he sends his guards after him. He grabs them all. Hey, who stole my cup? Right? And now I look around like, what? You stole your cup? You just threw a feast for us. You just gave us all this stuff. Joseph, no one's going to take your cup. Are you serious? He goes, look, my cup's gone. I know one of you took it. Who took it? They go, we didn't take it, Joseph. He goes, all right, I'm going to search your bags. And whoever's bag my cup is in is staying in Egypt as my slave for the rest of his life. And they're like, Dog, we didn't take your cup. Search our bags all you want, okay? He searches their bags. Sure enough, Benjamin's sack has the silver cup. They put him in chains and they drag him back to Egypt. And this is where, I'll read this here myself. This is where the story, this is the climax of the story here. This is where, take into account, especially talking about Judah, take into account all I said, how evil he was, how selfish he was, how, and if you want to read chapter 38 of the homework, as your homework, do that. How Joseph, through this whole story, has been selfish and has only cared, not Joseph, Judah has been selfish and has only cared about himself and has only been looking out for number one and just wants to have enough food for him to eat so he doesn't die, and has been manipulating other people and has been saying or doing whatever it takes for him to be okay. This is what that person says to Joseph in this moment. Chapter 44, verse 30. As soon as I come to my father and the boy is not with us, as soon as he sees that that boy is not with us, he will die. And we will bring down his gray hairs into Sheol in sorrow. For I became a pledge of safety for the boy to my father, saying, if I do not bring him back, then I shall bear the blame forever for my life. Now therefore, please let your servant, let me stay instead of the boy as your slave. And let the boy go back with my brothers. Judah, who was innocent of this situation, one of the few things he's innocent of, Judah did nothing wrong in this situation. Judah didn't deserve any punishment. And Judah was willing to sacrifice himself for his brother. He was willing to take his brother Benjamin's place. Judah was willing to take the place of someone he loved. And this is so profound to me. And this is so powerful. Because this is what the Bible really is, a masterpiece. It really is this masterpiece that has been given to us by God. And if you haven't figured it out yet, it's because Judah, 1,000 years later, had this great descendant whose name was Jesus Christ. And he made a similar sacrifice. Thousands of years later, Jesus sacrificed himself for people he loved, for something he was innocent of. Jesus was willing to take the punishment that he didn't deserve for the people who, because Jesus, like Judah, understands this concept that you have to take care of the people you love, even to the point if you have to sacrifice something for them. Jesus understood this concept. And at the end of the story, Judah understood this concept. And this is what this story is teaching us tonight. This is what the point I want to make. And like I said, this story is one of my favorite stories in the Bible because it has a happy ending. This is how it ends. Joseph breaks character. He tells him, look, it's me, Joseph. It was all prank. But it's just me, Joseph. You were never in any harm. I want you to go home. I want you to get all our family, get all your kids, get dad. Bring them here to Egypt. You're going to live in my palace. You're going to live with me. You're going to be safe. You're going to have all the food you need for years. And that this story has a happy ending. That the family of Israel is unified. And they move to Egypt. And they're safe. And for years and years and years, they're going to grow in a healthy way, in a healthy environment, as a family. And so with that in mind, the question tonight is this. Who are you from this story? Who are you from this story? Maybe you're like Joseph's brothers, who throughout your whole life, you struggle with jealousy. You struggle with being jealous people in your life. You ever heard friends say, how did he get that promotion? He stole my idea. Why does she have so many friends? Why does she like him more than she likes me? What is going on? Have you ever heard yourself saying this? Or this is maybe a better example. Have you ever known anyone in your life who was openly jealous of something someone else had? Have you ever been there with a friend or a close friend or whatever while they're complaining like, man, I just don't see how she chose him. I just don't. How is he getting this job? Can you be honest? It's hideous. Like, it's pathetic. It's pathetic. Jealousy is hideous. And it will eat away at you if all you do is compare yourself to other people. And especially if by comparing yourself to other people, you're not even trying to make yourself better. You're not, man, I wish I could be as good as him. Man, I wish I could be as nice as him. Man, I wish I could be as smart as her. If you're not doing that, I'm already better than that. I'm already smarter than her. You're eating away at yourself. What are you doing? And the Bible is so clear all the time about jealousy. And it says it, the one I'm going to read is Proverbs. It says, in chapter 22, it says, a heart at peace gives life to the body, but jealousy roots up your bones. Don't be jealous. It does so much more harm, and it does absolutely zero good. Maybe you're like Joseph's brothers. Maybe you're like Judah, who your whole life seems to struggle with selfishness or arrogance even, or maybe it's not you, maybe it's someone you know. Man, I cannot tell you how many times and how many relationships and families you see there's turmoil, there's disunity over something someone said. Or get this, in the church, there's disunity over something someone said, and maybe it wasn't meant to be toxic, maybe it wasn't meant to be hurtful, but maybe it was just you said something behind someone's back to someone, and then they said something to someone else, and then they said something to 5 other people, and next thing you know, the entire church is talking about someone behind their back, and then they find out, and next thing you know, they don't feel welcome at church anymore. And the next thing you know, all the work, all the good that God and Jesus have done in someone's life is washed away because they think the church hurt them. Because they don't want to come to church because of the people in the church. Come on, guys. That happens so often, and I have seen it so much, and I tell you, I've seen it so much at Harding. And it's not always that exact situation. Sometimes it is on the person who says they've been hurt. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not. And it's not good enough. Don't be like Judah's brother. Don't be like Judah. Don't be like Joseph's brother. Maybe you're like Benjamin. Maybe you're just always caught up in all the family drama. You're always just caught in the middle of it. You don't really, you're just happy to collect your check like Benjamin was. Maybe, this will be the last one comparison I make. Maybe you're like Joseph. Maybe your whole life you have been struggling. You've been fighting to do what is right. You've been fighting to follow God, to follow Christ. You've been fighting to serve Him and to make the right decisions. Make the right decisions and choose to do what is right. And still evil finds you. And still bad things keep happening to you. And still you keep getting put in tough situations. And your struggle is to find a way to stay faithful to God through all of that. And I'll tell you what, I can't always relate to that. But I'll tell you who can. His name is Jesus. Jesus was tested, and Jesus was looked down upon, and Jesus always made the right decision at every opportunity he had, and still evil situations found him. And still he was murdered for making the right choice. And his advice, and this is so profound, his advice to his followers and to his future followers was simply, pick up your cross and follow me. How important is family to you? And at this point in the story, it should be, like, based on the setting, it should be clear. I'm not just talking about your blood. I'm not just talking about your kin. Your family, your spiritual family, the men and the women in this room. How important are they to you? How important is not just the men and the women in this church, but of all of the church, of all of the churches everywhere. Anyone who calls on Christ, anyone who follows Him and calls himself a Christian, that is your spiritual family. Amen? Amen. How important is it to you that you have that you are unified and that you are together with your family? And it's like I said earlier, it is so easy. It's the nature of humans. It's the nature of relationships. When you have a relationship, you say something, maybe it's a sarcastic remark, and you didn't mean anything by it, but they take it so personally. And it will fracture, it will break, it will destroy a relationship. We as the church, and it can be anything. It can be distance, it can be jealousy, it can be money, it can be drama, it can be some kind of history. There's so much that can cause disunity in our body today. But look, we are a family, and it can't happen. Okay? Because look, and don't miss this. Because we, like Israel, are all in this together. And if we, the church, can't manage to stay unified amongst ourselves, what chance do we have against the society today? Against the society with all they tell us is okay? Against a civilization where what they practice and what they teach is right, and how they condemn God and they condemn us for what we say is right? How can we possibly stand a chance against that world if we can't even be unified amongst ourselves? And so the challenge tonight is this: unity. The challenge for you, and I know everyone in here has a certain relationship that pops into their head as soon as I say it. The challenge for you tonight is to regain unity with whomever it is in your family, or your church family, or your spiritual family. Whoever it is, regain unity with that person. And I was thinking, they wronged me. I don't need to apologize to them. Yeah, I get it. I really do. But look, it's not that hard. Hey, what you said to me all those weeks ago, look, it rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't like the way you said it, all right? And you don't have to apologize, but I just want you to know in the future, I don't appreciate it, man. And I love you, and And that's why I'm saying this to you. Raise your hand if you can't do that. Raise your hand if someone came up to you tonight and said that in that peaceful manner, you wouldn't reconcile with them right there. All right then. The challenge is unity tonight amongst our spiritual family so that we can be unified and take on this world that God has called us to save. If you're here tonight and you're not unified, if you're here tonight, or maybe you're holding something back, or you're jealous, or you're selfish, or you feel like the world is after you and it is so, so difficult to remain faithful to God, look around you. This family is here for you. This family is here to pray for you. And tonight, as we stand and sing, if you need anything, we ask that you would come forward now.
Our God.